Good morning, everybody. Whew, it is chilling. It was hot last night. Like, I'm telling you, it was hot last night. Um, I know my dog felt it. She went around the house a few times, was itching a lot, but couldn't find any fleas on her, so I gave her a bath, and she was just running around the house like, holy crap. A lot of energy. I was sweating up a storm. A lot of energy. So, yeah, it's going to be a very warm winter, I'll tell you that much. So, anyways, I was asking some questions to Facebook last night or to Google about people actually thought the Earth is only 6,000 years old. And, I think I think somebody in the Jehovah's Witness mentioned it, but I never really argued with the person because I didn't have enough leg to stand on. So I'm just like, I'm not going to argue that. I'll just let that be for now. But I know when I take in information, I tuck it away in the back of my files because eventually I will be using it later. That's for damn sure. And yes, I was able to use that later because I can't even see that Earth is only 6,000 years old when mankind is like over 300,000 years old. And all the seven different hominids that were the prototypes for the seven original gods, extraterrestrials, advanced humans that went in and bioengineered us. And so we have this type of diversity. And so anyways, it really is nature versus nurture. Like, I get it on such a bigger level. So what are heavenly hominids? They are half prototype of the seven hominids, which is Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo neanderthalensis. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce these. The Denisovans, Homo floresiensis, which is otherwise known as the Hobbit, or what John realized that maybe it could be the leprechauns that we find around Christmas, or the elves around Christmas, and the leprechaun around March 17th in America. I forget what, St. Patrick's Day. That's right. Jeez. And then Homo naledi or naledi, which is Starman. And I have to do more research on Starman because I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. And then Homo sapien, which is the wise man. Okay. So we have been hybridized with the seven original Pantheon, which is An, Enlil, Enki, Nin, Herzog, Nana, Utu, and Inanna, with the hominids. And then you have the 7 Archangels, which I call the heavenly hominids or the flying monkeys, but that would be a little blasphemous. So I didn't even post that meme that I put as a joke on my wall about 7 Archangels and the flying hominids, and it's basically the Wicked Witch of the East saying, "Fly, my pretties, fly, my pretties." I'm like, holy shit. The Wizard of Oz definitely have some credibility in so many ways. Not just the fact that Glenda the Good Witch really isn't the Good Witch. It was really the Wicked Witch of the East was the Good Witch, and she was the one that was taking all of her flying archangels and sending off to go find the humans. See, there's some interesting stuff here, that's even more than I imagined. So, yeah, so humans are, right now, we are heavenly hominids, but we're not flying, of course, okay? But then I realized with nature versus nurture, because nature versus nurture is taking the best prototype. And that's why we have 7 billion people, because what is biotech and what are the powers that be doing? They're procreating and reproducing 7 billion people and finding the best prototypes and innovating them, because the most stable prototypes are going to take to the evolution. The most unstable prototypes, they're going to be washed away with the virus, with all the remedies, with all their lifestyle, the drinking, the smoking of drugs, the so much sex and so much procreation that people do. Just those that have unstable prototypes will not last through their lifetime because they're depleting their resources exponentially. All the activists are going to be gone to the wayside it's going to be only, not only the strong, because it's not just about being strong, it's about being strategic. It's about being smart about everything. It's not about just strength. Like I said, strong strength. I mean, this is not about the giants and just using your brute power to get shit done. It's about like the strategy. How do you survive in a dynamic environment that isn't hand-to-hand combat? Okay? This isn't like mano a mano, we're on the warfield, you have a sword, I have a sword, and we'll see who the best man wins. That's like the old archaic gladiator times. Now we have to evolve humanity. Now they're doing the wars in a different way. The microbial wars are going to make a person think, or going to completely destroy and dumb a person down. And so you're seeing the split in our society. These microbial wars of viruses are destroying people because they don't understand the strategy of how to deal with a virus. So what do? They take all their antibiotics. They get their operations. They do all their exercises. They play all the games that they played prior to the COVID, but even more so because the virus has exponentially accelerated their intentions. And then those are like, holy shit. Like, those that understand salt. There are people who understood salt, but didn't understand that you can't stop at the cured state. You must evolve. So now you have to understand pain. Those that were doing all the detoxes, even though they weren't exactly understanding that pain was evolution, but they knew they had to go through the detox process, and it wasn't fun. That's what had me deal with all the pain, because I knew in the holistic world, I forget the name of it, when you're going through a healing process and you're sweating and you're feeling pain and all that stuff, and it's to be expected. So already half of the world was primed to deal with the pain of detoxing, the pain of something. And so that was then their threshold. We have opened up the threshold to deal with pain on some level in the holistic world. But that's where it stopped. As soon as they felt great, like when I did the bentonite clay, I felt so amazing because I had so much candida, so much whatever it was. And so I killed a lot of overgrowth. And so I had like a clarity. I mean, I didn't have all this fungus and all this shit just clouding my memory and all clouding my thoughts. And so I felt so amazing. I remember that feeling when I was in Minerva and I did a bunch of the bentonite clay or the diatomaceous earth. And I'm like, oh, but it was very short-lived, because as soon as the body realized I was trying to kill the different microbes in my body, it then found a way to resist whatever I was doing. And so then all my shit came back. So it was a very short-lived thing. You can't live on cures alone, and you can't live on antibiotics alone if you want to survive, because the body still wants to live. If 90% of your body is living and you're trying to destroy 10% of it, it will find a way for it not to have the 10% be destroyed. And so even though you have unbalances or imbalances and you have overgrowth that's clouding your memory, and you're trying to stop it, the body is not going to let you to do that until you figure out how to regulate it. And so this is all about strategy. So nature versus nurture. There are some going to take to the programming. That's why now I figured out why a lot of people don't get the J juice, because they probably came from a prototype that really didn't evolve. They were used. They were used for hard labor. They were used for specific jobs that didn't require too much strategy, didn't require too much attention and focus on detail when it came to whether it's building a house or studying some physics exam. And so some people just were used for simpler things, and you can figure out who those are in our society. As long as they can follow directions and they're not, insubordinate, they're employable if they can just, carry 60 pounds and look at numbers and disseminate, if you can be a sorter at like UPS. But there's so many different jobs that would require different levels of capacity. And so the nature versus nurture is the whole point of the J juice mentality is that you can bring your nature up to the nurturing level of our society. Before, you had to deal with what was given to you, and you could be at major deficits, and then you had to go find a job that matched your capabilities. Not that they would want to raise you above whatever you had. No, they were keeping you in a cured state. They were keeping you within your genetic line, within your class. And I mean, it wasn't so aggressive like in India where you couldn't even marry above your class or below your class. At least here in America, you can kind of move up and down classes And as long as you can play the part and you can nurture yourself and nature yourself up to the level or down to the level, then it's freedom of movement. That's the freedom that we have in our society. I wouldn't want to be in India and then be an untouchable or be one of the middle class, because you couldn't marry above your class. You couldn't rise above your class. And America and the West, you have a lot more freedom to rise above your class or sink below your class. I mean, it's up to you. So I realized within my own world, now I've probably finally figured out why I was adopted. So my mom was in psychotherapy, so psychologist, psychotherapist. Well, she wasn't a psychologist, she was a psychotherapist, MFCC. And they're always testing people and relationships and trying to bring them to the level of society. So I can imagine them adopting someone from Korea, which is my sister. And she came from a relatively benign background. She was given up somewhere, but didn't have like any war baby syndrome. And then there's me coming from Vietnam at the end of the Vietnam War, starving, came from an orphanage, major deficits. They thought I was autistic. They thought I wasn't going to walk or speak way back when I was like a year or so. And I was supposed to go to a New York family back in 1975 when I came here to America on Pan Am, and then the military jet, or no, Pan Am. And so my parents were told that somebody gave up one of the infants, and if you want to have an option for this one, fine. And so they took someone at a deficit, just like Trading Places, that movie with Dan Aykroyd and what's his face? Oh, God, I have his face in my mind. And drawing a blank. But it's like Trading Places. You're taking someone from a different culture, from a different area, and now you're going to try to nurture them into a new culture. Okay? What's his name? He was in, I'm going to figure out his name because I can't. This is going to, Raw. I know he did Raw. I had the tip of my tongue. Comedian. Oh, Jesus. Okay, not that one. Dang it. Eddie Murphy, thank you. Jesus Christ. When I have these blanks, it just pisses me off. I was like, Fred, which one do I want? But anyways, Eddie Murphy, thank you. Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. And so Eddie Murphy was from like the ghetto, and then Dan Aykroyd is from like the highfalutin, like the Illuminati type families. They're all like hoity-toity, very lily white. And so you take someone from the from the ghetto into a lily white, Upper East Side type of mentality, put them in clothes and teach them the mannerisms. You can nurture someone from a natural background, so as long as the natural background doesn't supersede the nature. And that's my issue, was I had so much predispositions, so much natural rebellion against any other forced programming that the natural superseded the nature. Even though I did take in a lot of the lessons and the techniques and the technologies from that class, because it was upper middle class, versus when you go to a different part of the world and it's lower class. So when you're learning upper middle class types of stuff, even though you're rebelling against the formula of life, my predispositions wouldn't allow me to take to the programming. So I went out and did my own thing. And then eventually I rose, like in my body, I rose to the level of what I was taught. Because I still can sit and just read stuff and study stuff and type stuff and just sit and just focus, which I was forced to do when I was a kid, writing book reports, writing sentences, long lines, like I will never lie again. I will never, like 1,000. I'd have a notebook of paper of I will never lie again. I will never lie again. Or just sitting in my room with my hands folded, just focusing. And I'd do that for like days and days at a time. I'd get up, go to the bathroom, we have to go and eat dinner and then go to bed. But my days were spent in my room because I was punished. But it forced me to sit and just read a dictionary if I could, if my mother wasn't watching, or read a book, or memorize the Israeli national anthem, which was at my disposal because I went to Sunday school and that's what was there to keep me occupied, keep my mind going. And so it's like kind of like being in a jail. So you realize people that are in jail that turn into born again Christians because they are reading the Bible. Okay, that's no different than what I was doing, but I was reading the dictionary. I was reading, stuff from Sunday school. I was reading a bunch of shit because that's all I could do. That was what all I could do. So even though I had that in my mind, like I learned that at a young age, I still did not want to do the other programming that was then tried to be forced on me. And so that's when I left home at a young age. But now I finally can rise up to the level of that programming in my body and still be free and figure out that I can almost do anything, that there is nothing that I couldn't do. That I mean, of course, I don't want to be a fireman. I'm not going to try to drag up 100-pound dummy up a ladder of, like, I don't know, 13 stories or something. So so there are limitations, but I could do almost anything that drives the brain, and most physical stuff that an average person can do that's of my weight and size and gender, if that's even a qualification, which it probably isn't. So that's the thing, that the whole JJ mentality is that you can rise the level of expectation by upping your natural game, okay? And so that's why we see such diversity in our society, because we're all prototypes. We were all made from at least 14 different versions of the same thing in different geographical locations. So I can only imagine what the first original gods look like. We all have an idea what the hominids look like, what the Homo habilis, erectus, Neanderthalensis, whatever, Denisovan, Homo floresiensis, Homo naledi, Homo sapien. Homo sapien probably was a composite and the evolution of all the ones before that. And they even said the Denisovans, they were extinct at some point. But, and some of these that don't exist anymore were destroyed in the different wars that happened back then. Because, yeah, when you have very baser level instinct species that are just trying to survive and fight for resources, they're going to fight each other to the death, no different than the gladiators in the Colosseums in Rome, okay? But still, the diversity of our society is based upon the mixture of the prototypes of the hominids and the first original gods. And then, of course, bioengineering improved upon the best prototypes. Well, look at the GATE program. Look at all these different genius programs, Menses, all the different stuff, stuff in what is it? The Rhodes Scholars, okay? They're given every opportunity. People that go to like Harvard, people go to like Oxford and Yale. And then you have your run-of-the-mill people who are very intelligent, but aren't groomed for major influential leadership. And so that's probably why you see the 13 bloodlines look relatively like, wow, they have symmetry. They look clean cut. They're very well coiffed. They're very polite, genteel. Okay? And so there's a really a manner of civilized-ish, just very civilized behavior in the upper class, because that's how they were bred, to show the distinctions between those that could take to evolution. But then some of the people in the upper class also had a lot of infection that was like in the Middle Ages. And so they couldn't escape they couldn't escape the microbiome if they couldn't handle it. Now with this JJ information, those that are in power, like in the kings and queens, if they understood this information, they could not only give it to themselves and potentially, I don't know if they'd want to do, well, they would have to bring me up first. The whole JJ mentality would have to be really put out there, like, and also be substantiated for then the kings and the queens, like in Europe, to then also live indefinitely. Because if they started living indefinitely, if Prince, whatever his name is, and Queen Catherine, if she becomes queen, and Prince Charles and Prince, is it Philip? I forget his name. I'm having brain farts today for some reason. But anyways, if they started reversing the aging process, people would think they were vampires. So they have to be very careful how what they put out there. But someone in America, and a lot of people in America and all over the world, are figuring out immortality. And it's going to be at some point the monarchies and all the different 1%ers are going to have to figure out how to level up to even the common folk now. Because them dying and reproducing, that's a slave mentality. And so how are the common folk now like the gods, like the original gods? That's the flip of it all. That's some crazy shit. I gotta drink this. This is iced coffee. I made this actually myself. So, anyways. So, yeah. So don't feel bad that there's people out there that don't get the J juice, because I'm not saying they're dumb. They're not dumb. It's just a lot to take. I think most people that are on Facebook have some ounce of intellect, and just some just choose not to feed their mind something different because they're dealing with so much stuff. They have a lot of emotional stuff going on. And maybe at some point when they can take a breather and they're faced with something that they now have a choice to go one road or the other, they could handle this information. Okay? But it's like, not everyone can handle it right now. And some people think I'm still crazy, and I'm okay with that. I don't care. But I understand why the whole nature versus nurture. Because nurturing is bringing in evolution on a prototype that may or may not be able to handle it. That's what nurture is. Nature is what you're predisposed with. Some people have a wholeness of themselves that they can handle new information. Or they have a stable prototype. Very stable prototype. And I call them prototypes because, yes, we came from stable prototypes and unstable prototypes. And then you can see them in genetic lines. And you can see them in all parts of society. Okay? And so now you understand why there's such a mixture of people and why certain people get things where certain people don't. And then this whole why there is an issue with people saying that the LGBT community is not normal, because they may be probably the most normal people and we've been bioengineered to be hetero. Okay? Maybe they came down as non-binary and then we made a split because somebody figured out that same formula in another galaxy, and that's how they were able to procreate society and create 7 billion people to go and find the cream of the crop. I mean, I can only imagine the planning it has taken for the powers that be to create this society the way it is, and have, parts of it first world, parts of it third world. The second world is done and gone with, back in the 90s when the Berlin Wall came down, Soviet communist bloc, all of that. So it has taken an enormous amount of effort of the Illuminati, of the very influential people, to organize our society and to give you this option to understand it, where you have the information at your fingertips, the internet. Everything that I'm researching is on the internet. All I'm doing is compiling information. I compile information, and then it's like a mind map, and then I organize the information. But before you can organize information, you have to have the information to begin with. Some people don't even want the information enough to even organize it themselves. And so if you are averse to taking in new information, there's no way you're going to organize it to make where it makes sense. And even if I give you the information, you're not going to understand how I put it together until I put it in a book. And then if you could even read a book and focus your mind to read a book, then you might be able to get it. But if you don't even read the book, then you won't get it, and you would still have an opinion about it, which is most of my, critics, is that they won't even bother to read anything that I say, because I understand they have a hard time having anyone challenging the reality. So yeah, the heavenly hominids. I can only imagine what the Catholic people are thinking of me, because I know Gabriel and Michael the archangel and all these different archangels were like all these beautiful heavenly creatures, and really they were just heavenly hominids. I mean, when you think about, like, if someone right now went and had sex with a monkey, and the monkey came out like half man and half monkey, or half, hominid and half advanced human. I mean, that's going a little far, but I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's essentially what was going on, is that even I don't know which one they would go and have sex with before they started doing all the bioengineering, but maybe it was the Homo naledi, the Starman, was the first actual prototype that they were able, the first stable prototype that they could actually procreate to then gain a Homo sapien. Because the Hobbit, I mean, okay, we know what the Hobbits are. They're the leprechauns, the elves, and all the things that we see out there. And that may be the little people, you know, in our society. I don't want to call them hobbits. That's kind of pejorative, but that's maybe where that gene came from. Now, could anyone that is a little person grow into a big person? Potentially. But I've never tried it. But since there is already a prototype of a Homo floresiensis, you'd have to bring in other DNA to then change the programming to then have the features become like a Homo sapien. Okay? So this actually gives me more of an awareness that are the different diverse people in our society, is it really from deficiencies and messing with the genome, or is it actual DNA from a prototype from a long ago? Okay, that just opens up even more doors and more like, oh my God. And so yeah, as long as you're aware of where you came from, that's all that matters. As long as you're aware of where you came from, that's all that matters, and then you can improve upon the prototype. You can always improve upon the prototype, okay? And if you're in Australia, what would you classify the Aborigine? Somewhere with Neanderthal, Naledi. Those, you can see there's definitely different features that could give you a clue on their genetic background. And it's quite interesting. All right, that's all I'm going to say. You guys have a good day, but I wanted to cover this because I got to hear myself talk about this. And then I pulled out a revelation about little people and Homo floresiensis, and then also DNA from original prototypes that were made from the gods. Because even though the gods came down and procreated, they probably made these first original beings to begin with. And then I think, okay, and then the history, okay, so for Homo habilis to exist, there had to have been a prototype from one of these gods that allowed it to walk, and then allowed it to evolve to then Erectus, Neanderthalensis, Denisovan, Homo floresiensis, and so on. Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Nana, Utu, Inanna all had a hand in these prototypes, and then they had to keep improving upon it and improving upon it. So yeah, that's probably why there's so, like right now, there's so many people in our society, and we have to pull out the people who are innovative, who are productive, who are peaceful, who are, you know, whatever. And so that's the same thing even back then, that they had to go and create so many different race of hominids and pull out the prototypes to go and evolve and innovate. And they keep doing it, and they keep dying and reproducing, dying and reproducing, dying and reproducing, and you keep messing with the genome, dying and reproducing until you get the perfect stable, and then you go and try to do more innovation. And then there's these resets to get rid of the shaft, those that are not taking to the programming, those that are very rebellious, those that are not taking to the society and all that. And so the virus is doing that without going to the genocide of the wars and all the things that we heard about, like in World War II and stuff. Okay, so just think of the hominids as the people today, like Universe 25 or the behavioral sync. It's the same thing. Behavioral sync in antiquity, actually back in prehistoric man. They had to have 2,000 mice, you know, thousands and thousands of these hominids, and watch their behavior. Which one is going to be strategic, that you can teach them stuff, and you keep expounding and expounding. And that takes time. That's not something you can do in 6,000 freaking years. No freaking way. 6,000 years is not enough time to take something from a Homo habilis all the way to Homo sapien. No freaking way. All right, bye.